Welcome in. It is week 12. We have somehow made it here yet again. Talk about even more injuries. Mike, our Chargers, what the heck is going on? I'm so annoyed. Do you think we're going to have a coach after, what is it, this week, I guess? Or do you think it's going to be longer? We're going to have to deal with them all year?
I think so. Chargers are not that type of cheap team. Dean Spanos is a pretty cheap owner. Doesn't want to be paying a coach that's not there. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. Should have won that game 3 times over, but they charged.
Yeah.
Chargers are going to charge her.
Yeah, I don't even know. I wish I had an idea. No idea what they're thinking, what's going on. I mean, our secondary is just non-existent at this point.
Yep.
But some crazy other games that happened. Justin Fields looks like he's back to full health, looked pretty good running, throwing the ball. Still not 100% with his throws, which I think is partially due to his finger and just being rushed all the time. But anybody you're like super excited for, I guess?
It's nice to see Kyler, in terms of passing, he's not there yet. Maybe it's rust or whatever, but to see him running the ball, that was the biggest worry I had. Was is he going to run the ball at all? And he's running it. So if you stashed him or picked him up, you're maybe looking at a top 10 quarterback if he's going to run the ball like he has been the first 2 games.
That's for sure. Okay. We're already kind of talking about quarterbacks, so we'll get into it. There are no bias because it is Thanksgiving week. There's a game, 3 games on Thursday, a game on Friday. The rest are on Sunday with 1 on Monday. So absolutely full week.
It's tough because a lot of these running backs that got dinged up, I think a lot of them play early in the week, so you got to make decisions, and it's going to be an interesting week for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely brutal. The number of options is pretty low. At least we'll start like always do with the quarterback. Very limited this week because you should have everybody back. So with that in mind, you're kind of looking at who it's going to possibly be. And honestly, no idea. The guy I'm starting off with is Matthew Stafford, 31.5% rostered. But again, we're just touching on it because of the fact that if you are streaming and have been streaming, he's a good option. He just lost Cup, which makes me a little nervous. However, it does look like Kyron is going to be back. Kind of curious to see how that works. Last 3 games haven't been super, but has to have tough matchups with the Steelers. Put up 14 fantasy points. Cowboys, 11.38. This past week, he lost Cup, which I think completely threw off the game plan, and he only put up 9.7 fantasy points. Definitely not ideal. So probably not who you're looking at, but I'm curious. That's like the best option I could really find. Do you have somebody better?
Yeah, I don't mind Stafford. He just can't seem to get that second touchdown. He had it yesterday and then got called back, and then they ran it in. So he has a good matchup. That's the biggest thing against the Cardinals. Derek Carr, I think he's going to play. I think he avoided a significant injury. From weeks 5 to 9, he averaged 17.3 points, and then he got hurt in week 10. He actually started off that game pretty well. Got hurt, missed the rest of the game. And he plays the Falcons in week 12. So he gets Falcons give up the 7th most points to quarterbacks. Pretty good matchup for him. And so Derek Carr could be a solid one again. It's a tough week, no buys. Maybe if you had Geno or something like that, you need to replace him. But and then Baker, the guy we've always been mentioning, I'm not sure what his roster percentage is, but he had a bad game yesterday, kind of expected it going against the 49ers. You can play the matchups with him, and then you look at his next 4 matchups, Colts, Panthers, Falcons, or next 3, Colts, Panthers, Falcons. So you could potentially ride with Baker for a few weeks if you're just going back and forth streaming quarterbacks. And, we've seen him put up, consistent play most years, most weeks. He has a few down weeks, but they were both against some tough defenses. So I like Baker for the next few weeks.
Well, and you brought up Carr, who we already love the defense. And on that same note, we love the offense. Wide receivers and quarterback matchups have been pretty solid. It's just really trusting Carr to get a second touchdown has been also the same issue that Stafford's kind of been having. It just hasn't really happened. They're relying a lot on their defense, and they usually get one good touchdown from their wide receivers. So
Taysom Hill goes in there and ruins everything. So yeah.
Taysom or somebody. They have it rushing with somebody. But so not a whole lot of quarterback options, but hopefully you don't need them this week. We'll move into running backs, which are a little more important, as we did see a couple go down, including, well, Kenneth Walker, which brings up my number one choice this week, Zach Charbonnet. We've been mentioning for this reason. And Walker was already banged up, has a oblique, and today Pete Carroll did say that he is an IR candidate. So not ideal, but with that in mind, Zach Charbonnet, 32.4% rostered. He actually kept his third down work during the time that Walker went out. So he took over Walker's role and kept the third down work, which meant he was on the field a lot. Came up with an okay day as a tough matchup in the Patriots, put up 12.9 fantasy points, but 6 receptions. That's the key part of this, because if he's seeing the 15 carries for 47 yards and adding 6 receptions, you're pretty happy getting that 10. Even if he just doesn't go for 10 yards, you get 1 yard each and you're at 10 points. So pretty happy with that. His usage in the passing game is definitely very beneficial for most teams. So more than likely, I'm expecting him to be picked up quite a bit and probably go over the 50% mark finally this week. But we've been telling about him for a while. You have some other options?
Yeah, no, definitely. Hopefully you have Charbonnet if you can afford it. And I know he plays the 49ers, but they just gave up, 6 catches to Rachaad White? Rachaad White had a decent game against them, so a good
yet
game
again,
against them,
and he scored.
Yep.
So I think he ended the day with 17.8 fantasy points.
Yep. Yeah, and on top of that, they could be without Geno. Good chance they're without Geno since they play on Thursday, and maybe they run the ball a little bit more, so I like that for sure. Keaton Mitchell, a guy, he's slowly creeping up, in the roster percentage. He didn't have a great game in week 11 after his 2 good games, but we saw a bigger workload. That was the biggest thing. He had 24 snaps. Gus Edwards had 25 snaps. So he kind of took over like the Justice Hill role. So Keaton Mitchell's one of those backs that, he can do it on 10 carries or 10 touches, he doesn't need necessarily a full workload of his speed. So yeah, he's a guy that I still want to roster. At least it's going to be tough to start, but still want to roster him. And just double checking his snap percentage. Yeah, it went up to 36%. It was 24% the week before. So hopefully it stays around that time. And then Tajay Spears, we've been mentioning him and Charbonnet kind of in the same breath, and look what happens when Kenneth Walker gets hurt. Everyone's going to go after Charbonnet, get ahead of the game, pick up Spears. And you could have a potential league winner. And they have a pretty good schedule, the Titans do, for running back.
Henry has one of the best playoff schedules. It's quite annoying. So Spears is definitely worth it.
Yeah, exactly. And another one I just added late to our list is Jeff Wilson. You were talking about, the HN re-aggravating.
Milter was like the only one who survived that game, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Salvin Ahmed got hurt as well. Don't know his status. HN, and they play on Friday, so they play like a short week, a 4-day week rest day. So it's almost like playing a Thursday game. So there's a good chance HN and Ahmed are out, and Wilson potentially, if you're desperate, you need to start. He might not be a bad one because they want to use 2 running backs for sure. They don't want to lose Mostert. They do get the Jets, which is tough, but it's a desperation for sure. There's not a whole lot happening on the waiver wire besides maybe handcuffing your guys, Rico Dowdle, Kenneth Gainwell for the Eagles.
Dowdle actually popped up with an injury too. So
that, yeah.
Only reason Pollard actually did so well. They took another
Zamir
injury.
White. Yeah, Zamir White's another one if you have Jacobs maybe. So it's kind of protecting yourself. Preparing for the playoffs, you should have an idea if you're going to, make it or have a chance at least.
Yeah, so absolutely need to make sure that's your priority is making sure you have your handcuff, or, you just have enough running back depth, which if you're trading right now, a lot of people's trade deadline was yesterday. So It's going to be a lot tougher. Got to make sure you have your hand toes. So,
Yep.
All right. Running backs out of the way. We'll move into wide receivers. People are definitely looking, and one of my favorites, actually due to the playoff schedule, is Josh Downs. 44.3% rostered, had a couple down weeks with injury, then the bye, so a lot of people dropped him. So he plays the Buccaneers, but week 8 versus Saints, 14.2 fantasy points. Then he got injured in week 9 versus the Panthers, put up 2 fantasy points, came back on 1 catch and put up in week 10 1 catch and 6 fantasy points. So somehow pulled that off, or maybe it was 2 catches, but still, the fact that he can do it in a quarter of play and put up 6 points, the Buccaneers, it should be a pretty easy matchup for him. And of course, going to the same note, Demario Douglas, another person also injured, also on coming off bye. A lot of people dropped him. He gets to play the Giants, so you kind of want to play whoever you can against them. I think it's a good matchup. But week 8 versus Dolphins, 7.9 fantasy points. Week 9 versus Commanders, 10.5. Week 10 versus Colts, 14.4. He's continuing to be almost creating the wide receiver 1 role for the Patriots finally. And I think he deserves every bit of it because he is so explosive and can really just be a game changer for that team. So, but I actually see your first one here, and I really like it because he was my streamer on Sunday, and he showed up for you. So let the people know who that is.
Yeah, Jaden Reed, again, another guy we've been kind of mentioning. These rookies always, if you always have an open bench spot, rookies are definitely the way to go. Stash them on your roster, see what they do. Jaden Reed, only less than 20% rostered. He's been really good the last 5 weeks, 11 points, 12.7, 19.4, and then 19.2 this last week. They give him 3 carries. It's tough with the Packers guys because they're kind of spreading the ball around. I don't think any receiver had more than 6 targets, and I think like 4 of them had 5 or more. So, it's always tough to find out who is going to do it. They were playing the Chargers, a terrible defense. We know that. So, but he seems to be, becoming a favorite target for Jordan Love, and a lot of guys who follow the Packers and know them well, they think he is their number 1 receiver. So, definitely like that potential rookie breakout happening, in front of our eyes. So, hopefully he keeps getting, more run and they keep getting him involved. Romeo Doubs is another Packers receiver that I think probably still deserves to be rostered. Like he's doing it without the volume, double-digit points for the last 5 weeks. Seems to be the red zone guy. At this point, and it's kind of the same with like Cortland Sutton. It's like, well, it's all touchdowns. Well, we're 11 weeks in and they're scoring touchdowns, so we got to just kind of accept it at some point. Like this is who they are. And Dobbs, I think 7 touchdowns in this year so far, so he's on pace for double digits. So it's tough to rely on, but if you're going to bank on a guy getting a touchdown, he seems to be a good choice. So yeah, both Packers receivers there. Khalil Shakir I've been mentioning maybe for deeper leagues. He had an 80-yard, 81-yard touchdown catch. That's catch and run. That's not going to happen every week, but
really saved his week this week. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But it was against the Jets, so we kind of figured they were going to do poorly. The whole team. Actually, Josh Allen did fine, but Diggs was down. Gabe Davis didn't even have a target. He seems to be kind of just phased out of the offense, even though he's out there all the time. So Shakir, I've been saying it, on a good passing day, he's going to get 4 or 5 catches, most likely, maybe 60 yards, and you hope to get a good touchdown. That could change when Dawson Knox comes back because they do use more 2 tight end sets, and I think Knox is eligible this week.
He is, but they already kind of are saying that he's not capable, so they're going to give him another week at least.
Yeah. So yeah, tough to justify Shakir. I mean, no bye weeks starting him, but just a guy to keep an eye on. He's been out there more on a pretty good, hopefully good passing offense. So, and then 2 guys I had a late ad. I want to get your opinion, like Odell Beckham, Jameson Williams. I wasn't sure if they're over 50%. They could be just because of the name value of both of them, but Beckham's been doing well lately, and no Mark Andrews now. And then Jameson, I think he had his highest snap percentage of the year, had a touchdown. Potentially could get more involved as the later part of the season happens.
Yeah, I actually really do like Odell. He's been one of the people I suggest streaming, just because specifically last week the opportunity for the big play was kind of the weakness of the Bengals. So that's part of the reason I liked him so much. And of course, he found the end zone, which helps things. But uh, kind of looking at his matchups, I mean, like you said, Andrews is likely out, so that would probably mean a boost for Flowers and OBJ being the ones who would get that workload. Jameson Williams one's interesting because it really is the big play that he's dependent on. But they continue to give him more work. I mean, they're just not targeting really anybody outside of Amon-Ra, and they've kind of gotten away from Kittle even, or Laporta, golly.
Laporta, yeah. No, definitely. They want to run the ball, and yeah, Amon-Ra's matchup proof. He's going to get, I think he's had double-digit points every week this year. And no, I agree. Definitely. It's tough. I think it's someone maybe if you have a spot, throw on there. Because again, since he's come back, we've seen a slight increase in snap percentage each of the last 3 weeks. So he's out there now 65% of the time, which is really good to see. And he's still a former first round pick. So I think he maybe a little bit in the doghouse, wasn't doing the right things, wasn't blocking or the things that Dan Campbell wants. And it sounds like he's finally starting to do that. So that could see more opportunity for him for sure.
Yeah, that was kind of my understanding is that they'd been sending him long and he's been blocking down there, and that's all he's been doing. So now that he's finally maybe earned that, he's going to see more playing time, which is a big boost for him. So we'll see how that ends up for him. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Clearly, he is fast when you get him the ball. So, yeah, I like all those picks. Definitely agree. As you will see, we'll move into tight end. Here's a great segue for you. We like Packers because I like Luke Musgrave, 28.3%. He had a rough week this week, but I mean, he still is a big play away from everything. He doesn't really need to score. He's just getting a lot of big plays or seeing enough targets to be viable. I mean, week 9 versus Rams, 14.1 fantasy points. However, he only had 3 receptions and for 50 yards. So pretty big plays there. Also scored a touchdown, which helps. Week 10 versus Steelers, 2 receptions, 64 yards, 8.4 fantasy points. And then this past week for the Chargers, he got lucky because he got 4 receptions, but 28 yards. First game that he hasn't really had a big play to help kind of separate him, or he didn't score. So, but again, they're seeing him a lot. They're using him surprisingly as like a field stretcher, which I thought that was more of Watson role, but maybe they're clearing out the center between him and Reed, and he's just finding that spot and is able to take advantage of the linebacker matchup. But kind of like him. He's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, and another rookie, could start coming on. Michael Mayer's another one that's not on our list, but maybe it's tough this week with tight ends. It really is. I mean, check if someone dropped like a Taysom Hill who's on a bye, or even Hunter Henry who's on a bye, or maybe even Kyle Pitts who's on a bye. Like maybe those guys were dropped and you can scoop them up. Isaiah Likely is a guy that's going to be available in everyone's league after the Andrews potentially out for the year. I thought I heard they say maybe he can come back, which would be.
Yeah, they said it wasn't. He could be. I doubt it's for our purposes. He's not going to be back. But for actual football, there's a potential that he can come back and play.
Yeah, and Isaiah Likely, he hasn't played. There's been 2 games now. This last game where Andrews missed basically the whole game, and then week 1 where Andrews missed that week, and he hasn't really produced, but we did see him produce last year at times. The only difference, and just kind of maybe be hesitant on how much you spend on him, is they had like no one last year on offense. Bateman was hurt, and I don't even know who their second receiver was, off like Aguilar maybe, or something
Aguilar
like that.
Was a big one last year, but him and Likely were the ones that saw the uptick, and then I guess Hill saw some more targets during that period.
Yeah, so it's just be wary of that. Now they have Odell Beckham and Zay Flowers, and Bateman's healthy at least and out there. So not that he's been doing anything, but so just be hesitant. Maybe it was kind of a product of, well, there's no one else, so that's why Likely did so well last year. But he's especially if you had Andrews, probably worth taking a shot on.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good replacement for you. Another one that we keep kind of touching on is, like, for example, if Conklin's available, he has a good matchup rest of the season. K. Dotton is another one who's been seeing a lot of targets and had success with them. They're going to have to continue to throw. I think that helps too. But those are also some available options if you don't like either of the ones we've given you. So you can't find them, great. But well, nobody really cares about the tight end.
Yeah. Tim Boyle is taking over the Jets. I don't know. I didn't go back and look. I think a couple years ago he started a few games, and that's all he's really started. I don't know what his tight end target percentage was, but maybe something to look at. And if he targeted the tight end a lot, that maybe that's good for Conklin. So yeah, it's tough out there with the tight end so far, or this week at least.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough. So I'm very curious to see how this Jets team's gonna look. Good for him for finally moving on from Wilson, but yeah, who knows? So good. I don't even remember who they're playing, but might look at whoever's playing the Jets this week because that might be a good defense to pick up.
Miami.
Oh, Miami. So, yes, baby. Yeah. Love it.
Yes.
Hey, didn't we bring that up last week? It's a great defense to grab for the playoffs. You need to make sure that you have them, and this is why.
Yep. Hopefully you grabbed them.
Yeah. But all right, we'll move into the, I guess, same AFC East teams and go with the Patriots. 28% rostered. Great matchup coming off the bye. Saw the Dolphins in week 8, 4 fantasy points. Week 9 versus Commanders, 4 fantasy points. Week 10 versus Colts, 7. Now they get the Giants, the Chargers, and Steelers. Don't know if you know this, but all of them kind of have weak offenses. Chargers are okay, but they really get stall out and don't really beat you with the big explosive plays that they're used to. QJ had another one hit off his hands, which is just brutal to watch, but I think the Patriots will be definitely prepared. Bill always comes with a good game plan for the defense. Hasn't been negative all year when they've matched up. They like to keep it low scoring and kind of control the ball. So I think versus the Giants, they can easily do that, and it's a plus matchup, especially since the Giants just are coming off a win. So they're going to be right in that high, and it's still going to be Tommy DeVito, not Danny. I keep wanting to say Danny DeVito, but I know that's not the right person.
I know.
But
we have to respect him now. He has I think more touchdown passes than like Kenny Pickett this year, or no, maybe not. He might actually. He might have more this year in 3 games. So
yeah. Well, to be fair, Barkley just trounced, but you should expect the Commanders gave up 2 of their best run blockers or run stoppers, I guess, and that isn't showing up for them very well. So target Commanders. If you have a run game or any kind of pass catchers, look at it. Who's playing the Commander, because that's probably going to be in your lineup, or should be.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that defense is so bad, so bad. I mean, we were throwing them out there as a potential stream because they were playing DeVito and the Giants, and that look how that turned out. So they get Cowboys and Dolphins the next 2 weeks. Like, if you have any of those players, good on you. That's great. So. I was looking at the schedule for week 12, and I felt like a lot of the good defenses or the good matchups were already rostered, but I have a theme here is who's playing the Panthers. So Titans in week 12 playing the Panthers.
Good plan.
Yeah. And they're not a terrible defense. They're not fantastic. They want to slow the game down type of defense. So Panthers are just not a good team right now for sure. And then the Bucks, they play the Colts in week 12, which they shut down the run pretty well. Even against McCaffrey, they did a pretty good job in terms of the yards per carry, not overall stopping McCaffrey, but that's one of them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the pass catchers, and then the Bucks they play the Panthers after that. So you get them for 2 weeks. I always like to look at guys who can use for multiple weeks, and that's a defense you can target for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the Bucks are fine. The Titans are fine. They're not going to kill you, is what we're really getting at. You're not going to have that negative score that's going to end up causing you to lose. But hey, what's up, Mike Lowry?
That's
Glad
up.
you pick it. Just in time, I guess. But I mean, it at this point, that's kind of what you're looking for. We're starting to look more towards playoffs. If you're going to make it, you need to see teams that you can play it for a few weeks. Which teams really match up well in the playoffs? Who has the best matchups? So, kind of wanting to make sure you have them. I mean, same thing with all your pass catchers and quarterbacks and everything else. You have to make sure they're good to go.
Yeah, especially you're playing the other teams in the fantasy playoffs. Everyone has good teams, right? So it's supposed to, at least. So yeah, those defenses, kickers, kickers is hard to predict, but defenses a little easier to predict. They can make the difference between winning and losing your fantasy matchup for sure.
Yeah, one of my favorite kickers right now is actually Groupie. I'm not quite sure, but he's been a top 10 kicker all year, actually top 5. But absolutely love that he continues to kick field goals and extra points. You can get that perfect combination, you're set. We saw how well everybody was so down on Bass, but started off with 2 field goals and an extra point. Like, that already gives you 6, so you're set. And if you get any kind of distance, that just adds to it. He had 2 that were over 40 yards, which normally goes for 4 or 5 points depending on your scoring format. So that stuff is a game changer. So times like that, now is when you need to start looking at that stuff, making sure you have the right people in place.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think we have a
Mike's still here. Pick 2 for next week already. Golly. I'm going to have to pull up the matchups to even see who these people are playing here.
Well, I know the Patriots are playing the Giants.
Yeah, so that should be okay.
Yeah, they just gave up a bunch of yards to receiving to. I'm probably going to lean Monty and
Lions versus the Packers. Jets.
Yeah, I mean, that's Packers except for last week. The Packers have been a really good matchup for running back, so I like Monty there.
And Jets versus Dolphins. So Hall could be okay. And Charbonnet is versing the 49ers. So if it's PPR, it's kind of... Yeah, you're probably seeing Stevenson for sure.
Yeah, it's tough though, just because the Giants are a pretty good matchup too. I don't want to. I think I don't want to get away from Brees. So hard though, because yeah, I like the first 3 for sure. I'm probably going to bench Charbonnet just because of the 49ers matchup and Drew Lock. They just may not even be able to move the ball, so potentially. So it's between the first 3 for me, and I really like Montgomery a lot, and I just think
he really was saved this past week though, getting that touchdown in like the closing minute.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to bank on touchdowns for anyone, like, he's one of them. And again, the Packers have been a really, really good matchup for running backs, and I don't know. I think I'm going to lean Hall and Montgomery actually, and I really want to start Stevenson too.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tougher. I'm going to go just based on pure volume here and go with Stevenson and Hall. Good matchups, and like I said, Monty again played just fine, but had a good run and scored a touchdown, which really boosted him up. Which again can easily happen. It's the Packers, but Gibbs still outsnapped him, which makes me a little nervous still.
Yeah. I think a lot of that had to do with they were trailing in that game, especially the whole second half, and Gibbs is going to have that role. So in an ideal world, they're going to be in a positive game script. That's a Montgomery game. And does it change
this week, man? And it didn't happen.
I know. Does it change your opinion that the Packers gave up 17 points, I believe, to Najee Harris? And that's by far his best game. I don't know. It's so. This is a tough one. I'm going to leave Montgomery and Brees, but I don't hate starting Stevenson at all. I like Stevenson, and he has a good matchup as well.
the issue with him is just I wish that they'd be somewhat consistent with how they use him.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
if
sure.
they were going, if I knew he was going to see 4+ targets, or if I knew he was going to carry the ball 15+ times, it's a slam dunk. Montgomery, I know his role. He's going to see 12 to 18 carries, depending on game script. It's going to be a lot of red zone work, so he's more likely going to have a touchdown. Then you have Hall, who is doing everything. I mean, they got rid of Carter, said, here, these are your keys. Enjoy your nice new Ferrari. Go run it as hard as you can. It's a rental car, but he's doing it all. So Hall is the must here. You have to play Hall, but I'm completely fine with either of the other two, just kind of depending on what you're projected for, I guess.
I guess because I would say, in my opinion, I mean, does Brees Hall have the lowest floor here though? I mean, we've seen a couple. He's doing it in the receiving game, but we've seen a couple. His rushing work is not happening at all sometimes. I mean, the last 4 weeks, like we've seen a 12 for 17, 16 for 50. Luckily, he's been getting the receiving work, but
I think that's why it helps with Boyle is because they're going to have to lean on the run. They're going to have to get it to Hall. I think that he's like, hey, it's between him, Wilson, and Conklin. I'm going to have to give it to the people who have been showing up and try and win over this team, because if I want to stay at quarterback, this is going to be the best option for me. You just kind of have to hope. I mean, I'm expecting a lot for the short area targets, and then because I'm expecting, Wilson be covered up as much as he can, because the Dolphins, they're usually pretty smart when they come to their defense.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, I guess we're definitely jealous. I'm glad that you have all those options, and and we love that you're here. Like it, I'm glad that we're able to help every week. It's been a lot of fun for us, so it's happy to help, Mike. Hopefully, we didn't just completely mess up your day, but we kind of split. You're definitely playing Hall. Then it just kind of depends on what you're wanting to roll with from there. But all right, we have a game. Have any predictions for tonight? Is it just going to be absolute trash? Big high scoring game?
I hope it's a really good game. I just feel like we do get let down sometimes with these hyped up games, but I hope this one's really good. I think it will be. These are two teams that I think are at the top of the NFL right now. You can throw San Francisco in there as well, but they're going to for sure show out. I guess I'll give the edge to the Chiefs because they're at home, but I'm not going to be surprised either way.
2.5-point favorites. So, and the over-under is 45.5.
Okay.
It's been, so live in Kansas. It's been a little rainy and cold. I don't think it's going to be anything that just ruins their day, but the ball's probably going to be a little slippery. Kind of hoping for a defensive touchdown. I think that's a good bet tonight. I'm also expecting a big night from Swift.
I think Rashee Rice is going to have his best game of the year, I think. So if you want to throw him in there.
The secondary for we've nailed down the secondary for the Eagles is not good. So
yeah. Kelsey will be good. Kelsey's going to be Kelsey, but I think
he goes over 100
the best
today.
Yeah, best game for Rashee Rice is not saying a whole lot. Like he hasn't been over 60 yards. I mean, he's been fine with touchdowns, but I think he gets like 90+ yards in a touchdown, or maybe even cracks 100. So I put him in a DFS.
A big play from MVS. I think that's going to happen tonight. It seems like the right time for him to have that 40-yard catch for a touchdown.
Yeah. I wonder if it's just going to all go for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Swift. I wonder if I'm trying to think just looking at DFS stuff, is Albert O going to be the receiving running back? Because Jack Stoll is not the he doesn't catch the ball really. So I don't know. Maybe Albert O's a sneaky
Mike's going to get the Eagles pull it off.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that's where I'm at too. Is Devontae Smith? I think he's the real benefactor here, because I think the Chiefs are going to try and take away AJ with Snead and McDuffie. I think Smith is probably going to hit McDuffie quite a few times too, which is going to make it a little tougher. So Yeah, I think it's. I think I do like the Smith play. And, well, so does Mike. And he finds the end zone for the third consecutive week.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. That's an option.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we have 10 minutes. We're going to get out of here. Hope you all have a good Thanksgiving. It is that week. Enjoy it. Eat all the turkey. I'm not a big fan of turkey. Eat ham, whatever you can. I'm more excited for the day after everything's closed and I can go get Taco Bell. That's my ritual. At Friday, I'm like, oh, Taco Bell. I've been craving you for 24 hours. Let's go. But
I agree, though. Turkey's overrated. It's fine, but it's overrated.
No, I want to be like, making like a arepas or it doesn't have to be turkey. Let's make something that's fun and everybody likes to eat.
A prime rib or something.
Oh, brisket. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, for sure.
You have any rituals for Thanksgiving besides watching football?
No, watch football. Gotta have pumpkin pie for sure. It's I know it's maybe a little controversial pumpkin pie that is, but it's good for this time of year. You gotta have it. So, but no specific rituals. Just eat a lot, watch football.
Yeah. So, all right. I hope you all have Thanksgiving. Just a heads up, the Thursday show is actually going to be on Wednesday because Thanksgiving is Thursday. So bring your start sit questions. We'll be answering then. I know it's day before the games are significantly further ahead, but hope you all enjoyed this. And, as always, remember, keep up with the nonsense.